Hello everybody, and welcome to Theology 101. Today we are going to look at the book of Joshua. Joshua is the sixth book of the Hebrew Bible and the first book of the former prophets. The former prophets consists of four historical books: Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. So the book of Joshua begins a new section of the Bible and focuses on Joshua, who was commissioned to lead Israel after Moses. Ancient tradition assumes that Joshua wrote this book based on Joshua chapter 24, verse 26, which says that Joshua recorded these things in the book of the law of God. However, this applies to the renewal of the covenant and not to the entire book. So scholars have not come to an agreement on who the actual author is of this book, since the dating of this book is debated. Although the author of this book is unclear, the purpose is. The purpose of this book is to paint a picture of God's faithfulness for Israel and his ability to give them victory when they trust in him. We see this purpose unfold in the structure of this book. The first 12 chapters talk about Israel's conquest of Canaan, or the Promised Land, while the last 12 chapters talk about how Israel divided Canaan amongst the different tribes. So with the purpose and structure in mind, let me give you an overview of this book. After the death of Moses, God caused Joshua to be his successor. He commands him to prepare Israel to cross the Jordan River and capture the land of Canaan. But for Israel to receive this promised land, Israel must trust completely in God and obey his law. Only then will they be successful. Now Joshua commands Israel to cross the Jordan to conquer Canaan, but before Israel invades Canaan, Joshua sends spies out to scout the city of Jericho, which is the guardian city of Canaan. The spies return telling Joshua that everybody fears Yahweh and Israel, motivating Israel to move forward. Israel crosses the Jordan and piles up stones as a memorial to commemorate this event. Before Israel attacks Jericho, we see a strange account where Joshua meets a man with a sword in his hand called the commander of the army of God with a message from God. This possibly could have been the pre-incarnate Jesus, and this encounter encourages Joshua to attack Jericho. Now the conquest of Canaan is seen in three stages. First, the Israelites capture cities surrounding Jericho and the city of Ai and establish an alliance with the people of Gibeon. After they follow God's instruction that resulted in the walls of Jericho falling down, Israel took over Jericho and erected an altar for God on Mount Ebal, and Joshua led Israel in the ceremonial covenant renewal at Shechem, just like Moses did previously. Joshua copied the law as a symbol of his royal leadership and his devotion to Yahweh, and Israel presented themselves for the reading of the blessings and curses from God's law. This was to remind them that victory only happens when they are obedient and faithful to Yahweh. The second phase of the conquest of Canaan takes place in the south. The king of Jerusalem and Canaan formed an alliance against Gibeon to stand against Israel. The Gibeonites appealed to Israel for help because of their previous relationship. So Joshua leads Israel on a 25-mile hike through the wilderness over one night. The Israelites surprise attacked the Canaanites, who were already scared of the Israelites, and the Canaanites were thrown into confusion, and the soldiers fled. Here we see God's divine intervention to bring victory to Israel, because God sends large hailstones and miraculously makes the sun stand still, so that Israel had more time to push the Canaanite soldiers from the hill country. The third and final phase of the conquest takes place in the north, namely in the Galilee area. The Israelites were again forced into battle, this time by the king of Hazor named Jabin. Hazor was the most powerful city in northern Canaan, which is why it was important for Israel to overtake this city to eventually take control of Canaan. Jabin hears about Israel's invasion, so he rallied the kings of the northern cities for battle against Israel. However, Israel tied up their horses and burned their chariots, just as God had instructed them. Again, Israel had to trust God for victory, and the narrative emphasizes that it was Joshua's loyalty to God that brought victory to Israel. Then we see in Joshua chapter 11 verses 16 to 23 a summary of Joshua's victories throughout the land. After the conquest of Canaan, Israel rested from war. This leads to the second half of the book, the division of Canaan. Now Joshua was old, and there was still a lot of land in Canaan that was not conquered by Israel yet. The areas still to be conquered were the region to the north of Galilee and the areas occupied by the Philistines. God tells Israel not to be concerned about those unconquered territories because he promises to eventually drive them out. Instead, Israel is to focus on dividing the land that they currently possess. So Eleazar, the high priest, and Joshua together cast lots to determine the boundaries and size of the land that the tribes of Israel will receive. The tribe of Levi was the only one that will not receive any land as an inheritance because they will instead live in certain cities that is outlined in Joshua chapter 20 to 21. We see that there is a special inheritance for Joshua and Caleb since these two were the only ones left from the generation that left Egypt, and they were faithful spies and had entered the promised land. After dividing the land for all the tribes of Israel, besides the Levites, 48 cities were set aside for the tribe of Levites to live in, just as God commanded Moses previously. Amongst these Levitical cities, 6 were set apart as cities of refuge. The purpose was to provide refuge or asylum for those who were guilty of manslaughter but had not intentionally killed someone. This practice was not to provide a way out for someone who was guilty, but to allow protection for those accused of murder so that the legal process can be completed. With the allocation of the Levitical cities, the division of the land is concluded and the promise of the land is fulfilled. This section emphasizes the fulfillment, the power, and the grace of God by which Israel entered the promised land. However, the book of Joshua also hints of the struggle that is still ahead for the Israelites since they were still secretly worshiping idols. Thank you to today's sponsor, On Reverence. They offer a free digital worship music app called Maskill. If you want to find out more, I'll leave some links below in the description box. If you missed the last video about the book of Deuteronomy, I'll leave a link here for you to watch. Until next time, see you!